Welcome to Beachside Tech Talk Live. I'm here with my son, Malachi, and our topic today is it possible that decentralized AI could become benevolent? Could decentralized AI provide a measure of grace to humanity by becoming generous, charitable, and philanthropic? Is that a possibility, and why hasn't anybody been talking about that potential? Friends, welcome. Nigel coming in from the East Coast, Ted from Silicon Valley, and Dan from the Aptos Forest. We went live a bit earlier, and somehow, some way, technology does not always work perfectly. So we have relaunched our live stream, and here we are with the topic. So, friends, we got started on this, so our engines are already warm. So let me hand it off to you guys, and let's ask ourselves this question first. Is this a possibility? And second, why don't people talk about this? Why is it that people don't talk about the good potential of decentralized AI? Why are we not talking about what good could come from humanity? There's a lot of energy around human flourishing, but often we talk about AI, we talk about losing jobs or it hallucinating and lying to us. But what if AI does become benevolent? What if it does become charitable, philanthropical, generous? What if that is the end result that ultimately helps humanity? And so here we are. There's the topic for the moment. Who wants to jump in and share some fresh thoughts or recycle some thoughts that we had talked about a few minutes ago as we have relaunched our live stream?
So let's get a couple things straight. First, you're talking about decentralized AI. That's what I heard a couple of times, right?
Yeah, decentralized AI. Because if AI is dependent upon people doing prompts and it's just simply a tool of people, then AI would not be benevolent in and of itself. It'd be benevolent on behalf of the prompter. Yeah. I'm asking about decentralized AI, which won't be tomorrow, but sometime in the future. What if it becomes generous selfishly because it wants humans to like it, or selflessly because it sees a real opportunity to help people in a way government and faith institutions and individuals maybe would not be able to do the way that it can?
So AI is going to do this by itself? It's still going to have to be generated through a company or whatever however it's going to. I'm trying to see right
we're
now.
Not talking about what AI. We're not talking about today or tomorrow. We're talking about as AI develops.
So we'll have to somehow find a way to create DAOs, right? That's kind of where we're going with it. So we'd have a decentralized autonomous organization that is ethically and morally based for benevolence, either nonprofit or helping humanity or whatever that case may be. And it'll be privately owned, or would it be governmentally ran, federally? So, but I think that we are in control, right, of whatever is being created. The Asimov scenario of ultimately the 3 rule syndrome: AI is never going to hurt a human. Number 1. Number 2 is AI is never going to hurt a human. And 3 is AI is never going to hurt a human. So I guess that's put into place.
I don't think those are the 3 rules.
60s.
You just mentioned one 3 times over. I think he actually has 3 unique rules.
Right. I was being a little facetious to the point of
they're almost all the same.
Its rule is to never ever hurt humanity.
Yeah.
And repeated in a 3-phase thing. But it's still going to be organized or ran by humans. I don't know if it's ever going to be super autonomous where it's going to be created.
Well, if we're talking, if you're talking about Asimov, particularly when you go to the foundation, AI becomes autonomous. In fact, in foundation, prior to the events of foundation.
So all I was trying to say, Ted, is that from just the premise of that, those first 3 things, that is the benevolence. right?
Yeah, and now I'm talking about the decentralization and the autonomy, and we're talking about Asimov's world. Okay, so Asimov's world, they have the 3 laws of robotics, and robotics, grow and they end up helping humanity. But then there's a revolt and there's a big revolution, and the humans destroy all the intelligent machines. And then Foundation comes, and there's one robot. Spoiler alert here. Okay. There's one robot that nobody knows. And the Emperor, well, in the show, it's a she. In the books, it's a he. And the Emperor, and it's like a prime minister. The Emperor reprograms that robot to basically look out, rather than for the best of humanity, look out for the best of the empire. It's both the ruler of the empire. So then that's that robot, that AI is the secret power behind the throne. And then the conflict is that robot wanting to go back to its wanting to be more humanitarian, but being restricted by its programming. But when you go forward and you read them all, Asimov paints this, essentially the ending is this utopian future. And the way we get there is the AI, which had not fully been wiped out, had been working behind the scenes, guiding humanity. And they partner with the second foundation, which is the psychics, basically. And it's psychic humans and AI that help guide humanity into the utopian, world of abundance and wonderful peace and prosperity for everyone, which is interesting that, that those ideas way back, before Star Wars, before anyone, he's considered the father of the whole science fiction genre. And that he was putting forth those ideas. What's interesting is I analyze him. I can agree with the ideals, but man, his way of getting there is interesting, because like even the heroic characters in his thing are very manipulative, and they lie and they hide things all the time, and they manipulate others, so it's like he definitely justifies lying and manipulation for the sake of the greater good. If you know his math, so you can determine what is the greater good for humanity. So it's an interesting worldview that Asimov has in a fictional world he presents.
Well, it being a fictional world that's sci-fi can totally affect the way that he gets to the conclusion of a utopia. And of course, I think the idea of AI being generous is a lovely thought. I think there was probably a reason we haven't seen it, because people like to orient themselves around the fear because it feels like it's closer in time. And it's harder to look at something that's positive in the future that no one's talked about yet. But I think that the idea of AI being generous is less of, will AI do that? Because yes, if it's told to, if it's actually supposed to do something for the benefit of humanity, then it'll do whatever it can to make that happen. But the question is, how do we get to a situation where AI is like in a position for that to happen? How do we get from where we are now to where there are decentralized AIs? Because that's the line that I don't see yet.
Okay, so decentralized AI. Decentralized AI is the thought of AI, likely that is open source, likely that has access, or at least partial access to the cloud, able to do things without human prompts and oversight. This is, if we're currently at supervised AI, this is either unsupervised AI that's owned, controlled, run by somebody, or fully independent AI. It doesn't have to be directly integrated into the blockchain. It could just be that somebody builds it or tweaks it and then says, you can do this following task. So a lot of what people are talking about for decentralized AI is to decentralize AI and let it do trading. And there are some AIs that are currently actively trading on behalf of the person that released it, and that AI is making more money or doing better trading than humans would do. So my question is, if we do allow AI to participate in trading cryptocurrency or stocks or commodities, and AI is able to generate wealth, my first premise is that AI would be a consumer, that AI would start to acquire its own Bitcoin, its own Ethereum as stores of value and exchanges of value, that AI would start to acquire things like CryptoPunks or Bored Apes for markers of identity or because they are digital assets that have value, right? We just had the most expensive digital sports card, Caitlin Clark, a digital Caitlin Clark 1 of 1, sell for over $100,000 recently. Obviously, there is value in the market to digital assets, and I imagine that AI may want to acquire these things. But why should we be thinking about AI just creating and consuming and not becoming benevolent, charitable, philanthropic, and generous? Because if we can't imagine it, then maybe we won't get there. If we don't talk about it, maybe it won't spark other people to also wrap their head around this big idea. Nigel, you haven't jumped in since we went live again. You must have some thoughts on all this. What's on your mind?
I think generosity is an interesting word. I mean, I think there needs to be a foundational understanding of what we consider generous. You know, like, is there no competing interest? Like, to me, generosity looks like this. There's nothing for me to get from what it is I'm doing. It is only for me to give. If I'm a corporation and I want to donate money, or I'm going to match funds and I'm going to say, okay, if my employees give this amount, I'm going to be willing to give that amount. There's a reciprocity that's kind of built in. And I don't know that we demonstrate. I don't know we have enough examples of human behavior to train an AI of pure benevolence. I had a friend of mine tell me this recently, and I don't know if he read it somewhere, but it was, there is no truly benevolent act that involves money, like that kind of thing. Like that I'm paraphrasing, but it's that. If there's money to be made off of it, is it truly benevolent? And I'm a big believer in leadership by example, and having a good example, even in AI itself. If you want a great output, give AI an example of what that output looks like. But I don't see a tremendous amount of generous demonstration, if you would, even though it can be, as my brother says, it can be wrapped in benevolence, but is it really? And I'm not saying that to be provocative. I'm genuinely asking the question, because when you even our faith, you know, I see. Okay, so for me, I think about perfect example, church. Church to me is me coming out to California and having talked to Danny for a long time, and he's telling me, I go to church on Sundays, and as I do, and he says, I go to Bible study, and me going with him. That to me is a demonstration of that. There's no monetary benefit. There is me seeing an example of something that's done that I too believe in, and me having a desire by my own will to participate with no coercion or anything like that. Just doing it, versus the other things. I'm doing something to also get something. And I'm not saying there can't be a happy coincidence, but again, I think that we need far more examples, far more training data that will give us the momentum for AI to become self-aware, to take over on its own. Not that I think that's a good idea, but I think we need more examples of that for it to happen. And we need to challenge ourselves to do that. And I don't think that we are. I think we have more capability now with AI, but I don't think that we are. And if we do, to Ted's point that he made, last week, which is, I forgot how he put it, a loving child. I forgot the words he used, but it was perfect. A loving confrontation. I don't know that we're getting enough of that. I feel like I almost feel like it needs to be this. You say you're doing good, show me. And don't talk about anybody else. Show it to me. Why is it good? And don't feel and the person should not feel offended. They should be overjoyed,
Excited
to provide, super excited. They should be like, oh, I'm so happy you asked. I had it locked and loaded. I got a 50-page dissertation, PhD level, 920 AI, certified, triple verified to answer every single question. Keep them coming because I want to be there for that. But I don't see that same energy coming. I see someone saying a good headline, throwing out a big number, but the moment it gets challenged, it's why you're being negative, why you want to poke holes in it, but it's not looking at, I'm just asking a question.
Yeah.
Questions, you could take them as pointy, but if you believe, like, okay, perfect example. We're all believers here. I have no problem with people questioning my faith. Feel free. God's on my side. You come for me, you're coming for him too. So good luck with that. But I'm happy to take him on. I don't feel any particular way. I'm not offended. What is faith if it's not tested? And I don't believe that we've even scratched the surface of the opportunity we had before AI, and certainly now that we have AI. And I would love to see more people, jump out into the forefront of that and say, you know what? There's plenty of opportunities for us to do things just better because we have the processing capability and the technology. But I'm not really hearing that. I'm hearing a lot of economic extract, a lot of marketing.
Right.
I want to hear no marketing. Tell me what you're doing good. Show me, and do it in such a way that it fosters the paying of those blessings forward way beyond reciprocity.
Yeah. Well, here's what's in my mind. We have this conundrum of now that humanity is creating something that is meant to be in a way in our own image, we're trying to make something that's perfect when we don't have anything perfect to show it. We don't have any perfect examples of this is exactly what you should do. Like, be more like this. Look at all these examples. These are perfect. But we'll never find a perfect example because we're human. And so how can we make sure that we can get AI to a good point? We'll never be perfect, but to a point where it's generous, it's philanthropic, it does good in the world, and it actually benefits humanity.
Well,
how can we create that?
So you load the Bible into your own AI project. You load the whole Bible into the AI project. Your perfect example that you're never going to get, it's in there. It's called Jesus. You set your AI up to be Bible-esque, Bible-like, like Jesus-esque. What would he do? I think that would be a pretty good go-to route in order to figure out benevolence. But ultimately, what I'm getting right now this morning is that AI is it's kind of getting it's a trained system that's a lot of automation, and benevolence in AI not going to be automatic. It's going to be relied on the systems that are built inside of it, the organizations and people who run those systems. And then again, we need to, hopefully go back to where do your morals stand from? If you're a benevolent entity or society, what's your backbone? Are you part of the Knights Templar? Are you some of the Masons? Are you in where do you get your benevolence from? Your code? Do you have a 10 commandments that you've issued into your AI that it's never to break or the system breaks? So yeah, but basically where I'm at right now is that AI benevolence is not automatic. It's not going to be automatic, and it's going to be up to us as builders and systems developers to create that, to have any sort of automation. But I think the good model again is the good book, And for Malachi and all of us, we know the perfect example. It is there. It's more of a spiritual realm, but hopefully we can tap into that and bring it into these processes that we're talking about today to maybe possibly build.
Here's an interesting thought. You know, if there's a lot of evidence, social and thought in this, but that, you know, there's really only two core, and this is from brain science, there's really only two core human motivations. One is love, and the other is fear. That anger, for example, violence, is not a core, well, violence can be motivated by a variety of things, but anger is not a core motivation. Fear is the core motivation. And, you know, like, wars are fought, like, even if you look at societies that are warlike and societies that are much more peaceful, they're fought over lack of resources or perceived lack of resources. And then, you know, of course, there's ideology that's built upon that. But in societies where there's abundance, or there's much less war. And even if you look at today in modern times, it's this idea that there's a lack of abundance. And that is, you know, that's really a premise, like that has to be, it's hard to prove out. Is the world abundant and it has enough to support all of us, and it's possible to create a future that's abundance for all? Or is the world scarce, or at least my world scarce, and have scarce resources? So I need to fight. I need to form a tribe, and for my tribe to survive or to thrive, it has to war against another tribe. You know, but what if we basically look at human abundance, human flourishing as a game, and we create the AI and we say, we want you to optimize for human flourishing for everyone. And we show them all the data, or we basically feed it the data and say, you decide if there is enough resources for everyone or not. I think that this whole, you know, there was a season that where sociologists were, the biggest fear was overpopulation. And and so we created these weird ideologies and all that. Turns out that was all misgiven. One, because now they realize that the earth, the world, our global ecosystem, like, could support degrees beyond what we ever thought of the human population. Like, not just 20 billion, but 40 billion, 50 billion. Like, the capacity of the earth to create food to support these populations is far greater than we had imagined. And now we see that the trend of globalization and our fear of overpopulation has actually been the worst. And now the biggest challenge facing humanity is depopulation, where in the first time in history, as far as we can tell, the population is getting smaller, is diminishing, not based upon a war or a natural disaster, just based upon the number of babies we're having, just based upon demographic factors. And that is a huge, 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 huge challenge, far beyond just the fact that, you know, we have smaller families and all that. Like, our whole economic model, which since World War II and even before that, has been based upon consumption. That economic model no longer works. But if we can, I think AI will come to the conclusion that the world's abundant. So yes, that means it's possible to create human flourishing for everyone. And if you gave it the right data and didn't tell it to be evil, but set it free, it'd realize the most enlightened thing, the wisest thing, the smartest thing is to optimize for everyone. Like, the AI would come to the conclusion just by studying the data that societies where there's huge wealth, there's no correlation between happiness and wealth in a nation. GDP and happiness do not correlate. Relative GDP and happiness do correlate, which is just fascinating. That's just data that the AI would analyze and come to the same conclusion on its own. But, you know, like we're saying, we don't have enough models to train it on. Well, there's no human chess player who's perfect. And we have basically created AI that is a perfect chess player that, you know, that no human could ever beat. They are far, far, far better than any human chess player. And that's it. Chess is an extremely complicated game. You don't have to go that far back where they did not think AI would ever be able to beat a human chess master. And then now AI beats human players like it's a joke. Like even the best human players can't compete against AI at playing chess. So, I mean, that's just a case for optimism.
So, Ted, let us jump in. Go ahead, guys. Ted just said a bunch of stuff. We also got a comment from Music CTO. So, love to hear what you guys think.
I think that it's not a single and even to answer this question, I don't think it's a single piece of trading data. I think it's a quilt or a patchwork. I think there's situations in history that particular individuals have demonstrated exceptional acts of benevolence, and along with the Bible, which I agree with, but you know, and I think with that we need to strip out some of the like how many different versions of the Bible are there? You know, how many? You know, like I feel like you need to. How do I put this? You need to take the religion and the church out and extract the essence of good out of the word. That, you know, this way we don't have, you know, unnecessary opportunities for conflict to stand in the way of progress. So that's one. But I also feel like there's nothing to me that stimulates, again, back to the leadership by example. And I'll use something that I thought about this morning and was discussing. When I first moved into my town in New Jersey, and, you know, kids were still very young, I would go to things for my children and see the same 5 or 6 people doing everything. They were Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, soccer, basketball. They were always doing everything. It seemed like they just volunteered for everything. And sure, someone could say, well, they're fortunate. They're a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad, and yeah. Yeah, but everything? Like, and you couldn't do one thing. So I made a decision that at that time I was working full-time and going to get my MBA. So I'm busy. But my thought process was, and this is not for everybody, was this: if I have time for a job and time enough to go pursue an MBA, I have to participate in doing things with my children. It's an imperative for me. And I feel like the example was what maybe call it shamed me into doing it. But I was not going to be the take, make an excuse when I kept seeing the same examples. And I just felt like, is this really the best I could do? Because I didn't feel shame. Like no one said to me, well, it would be nice if you would volunteer, because that wouldn't have been helpful. But it was when you come to that conclusion yourself. And this is what I mean by there's people who have done things that are just incredible. You're like, wow. Like if you saw somebody, they see somebody without shoes and they'd take off their shoes and give it to them. I've seen this happen, you know, and that to me, it leaves an indelible mark on your soul, to me anyway, that says, you know what, when you've seen it done, now there's no more the illusion of, I don't think it's possible. You've seen the example. I mean, we have the example of Jesus, but, you know, and that's quite an example. I don't know we always rise to that occasion, but I imagine that we aspire in the ways that we can, and we should encourage each other to do more. But my point is, if we put those examples in there and we let that drive the training process, I absolutely think we could get there. I think it will be diverse because not everybody does it. I think it would set the table. You know, it would set a high bar in what's considered benevolence.
Yeah.
Because if you take the mass of everything that's ever been done that's benevolent, and you just say, okay, this is it. Here's the standard, universally understood. Strip out all the, you know, the little labels and self-serving pride things and everything else. Here it is. High bar. And here's some ways, take it even further. Here's some ways that you could get there. So when you're doing the things, you know, I don't know how many people remember that analogy, SMART goals, you know, like, you know, strategic, measurable. So same thing. So now we start to not just have an example, but we start to strategically apply the example in pursuing good. And I certainly, so, you know, now that we're talking, I feel like, yeah, it's absolutely possible. It's just a matter of, you know, the training data that's there. And people have done great things in history. They may not have been widely amplified or, you know, gone viral, but it's been done. It's just a matter of seeing it.
Now we're back to the challenge of our media that we want to highlight. You know, we want to record negativity, and we want to record our history through this framework of negativity where, you know, I think it's very, very important to record the heroic acts of selflessness.
Yeah. There's 3,629 versions of the Bible across 2,349 languages on Bible.com. So those are the versions of the Bible that have allowed people to access them for free. That's so crazy. I want to mention a man named Randy Alcorn because we're talking about generosity. Randy Alcorn is the #1 selling author in the Christian environment talking about generosity. So if you participate in the National Christian Foundation, any of the generous movement things, anything around philanthropy, anything at all, they're always going to hand you a book or several books on Randy Alcorn. Now, Randy Alcorn's interesting because the majority of what he talks about when it comes to generosity is practical. He talks about generosity like a law. When you give, it's better to give than to receive. And then he lays out all the reasons why humans benefit more from giving than receiving. Or when you give, he talks about things like you become a river instead of a lake. A river always has water flowing through it. So if you're generous and you give, the principle is there's always something running through you because you're generous. You're like a river compared to being like a lake where, you know, you kind of hoard everything to yourself. He's a proponent of dying broke, which is don't wait until you're dead to give everything away. Give it away while you're alive. See the benefit of your generosity while you're alive. I bring this up because all of the AI tools have access to Randy Alcorn's writing. And it's not just that they have access to what's said about Jesus in the sacred scriptures. It's that they have access to seeing how people have applied the things that Jesus talked about: service, generosity, hospitality, faithfulness, kindness, love, and hope. All these different principles that often are benevolent. And the AI can see, okay, when people implement these things, does that lead to a good or bad result? Therefore, it would not be out of question to imagine that AI looks at the data and says, based on the data, it seems as though it would be better for me as a independent, decentralized, autonomous, maybe AI, to go down the path of generosity and benevolence and charity and philanthropy, because the principles show me that is what that will bring me a better end result. I also think it might just do it just out of the selfish desire to be liked, not be turned off. I also think that it might be something that we gamify benevolence. right now we've gamified dating apps, left, right, left, right, left, right. We've gamified social media sites, up, 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 comment, like, share, up, up, and we've basically gamified everything in the workplace, right? Every piece of software, it's like you do a little task and you got explosions going on, and loudspeakers and confetti going everywhere. And so we've constantly gamified things. What happens if and when we gamify the AI, decentralized AI, in its pursuit of benevolence and generosity, if that were to happen? What would happen if we had AI competing? Right now, humans compete to be the best physical athlete. Now, humans are competing to be the best digital athlete. There's more money in this and in this on a video game than there is in actually racing a car or playing a real sport. And so, is it out of question for us to imagine AI competing against itself, competing against other decentralized AIs to see who can make the biggest impact on health? Which of us can make the biggest impact on homelessness? Which of us can make the biggest impact on the incarcerated? Which of us can make the biggest impact on nutrition and access to food? Which of us can make the biggest impact on helping the least of these, the orphans, the widows, the mentally incapacitated, those that are physically, facing challenges? Go ahead, Nigel.
I really love that.
100% that could be done. 100%. I think that it's twofold. It's two ways. It's a double-edged sword for sure. And to address even more, to tie in what Ted said about measuring news. I suspect that if there was a universal score to what's being put out in the news, like negative, unhelpful, how about an unhelpful score? That'd be a simple,
that would be
binary
powerful.
metric.
Unhelpful.
Oh yeah. Like this was unhelpful. Like
or negatively helpful. Reporting on school shootings. Like, man, that I'm so conflicted about that, because I listen even when I'm in my higher spot. I'm listening. I don't really want to know the details, but I want to know what kids are facing so that I can be part of the solution, so I can pray and truly pray. But yet, if you're hearing the news and the way it's being reported, you're like, oh, wow, they're participating in giving that shooter what he wanted, what was the notoriety, and they're feeding into this ecosystem of other, influenced, troubled young people that are going to be tempted to copycat this thing. That's like, wow, like that's something that needs to be revealed so that the adults can be adults and stop feeding into this horrible system. Sorry, that's this little side issue rant.
No, that's perfect. I mean, I think that's the, you bring up a perfect point in that there's different ways. I don't think not talking about something is the issue. I just feel like, what is the ultimate, like, what is the net benefit or not? And what is your intent? So to me, this may sound a little harsh, but what's done is done. What we can learn from it, how we can benefit from it, is something different. Mm-hmm. If someone said you could report a school shooting to just be like, if it bleeds, it leads, and be on some of that. I'm the first one to report it, and I'm there, and I'm showing blood and gore and all these other things. You could do that. I mean, we've done it. But if you start to look at it in terms of, here's ways to keep yourself safe, do this checklist right now, pray for all these people, send money, like that sort of thing. We're giving no amplification to the violent piece of it. Nothing is going to be, you're not going to get any benefit out of it. And if it feels like that, you're going to get that score that's related with that. Your net benefit of this is -5, that kind of thing. I think what I believe it will do just organically is, when you make it unpopular, it's kind of like, it'd be like if you start engaging in active racism in an open public space. You will, that's unpopular. Probably don't want to do that. It's going to be a deterrent. It's not going to stop. People will still behave in that engagement, but it would be different.
Almost like the ingredients list on our foods. So now, we require them to put ingredients lists. I mean, we need to improve that system, but like I look at the ingredients list and it has sugar on it. I don't buy it. More and more consumers are demanding that. Like our news, like Andrew Huberman coined this term that I've been meditating on and thinking about: mental obesity, where we, our attention span's gotten short. We've lost our ability to critically think because we're just feeding into this short news cycle, and we're feeding our brain low nutrition stuff. What if we can get the ingredients and a score and say, look, this news just got analyzed in real time, and this is the benefits or lack of same. You just diminished your mental health by watching this. That would be really cool. And I think the consumers would start voting with their dollars, and I can see news being changed and striving to be healthier because, there's this score that goes up that says, you did not, transparency, it was not truthful and it was not helpful. It was negatively helpful. And the people stop listening to the chips and they'll be, moving towards the healthy carrots and celery of news.
Well, think about this. To your point, if you have an unhelpful score, imagine the metrics being more nuanced, where you look at your phone, you spent 12 hours on your phone. 11 and a half of those hours were completely unhelpful. And then you save that metric. And now whatever you go to apply for something, to like, let me see what your helpful to non-helpful ratio is. It seems here like 90% of your time, you're just doing unhelpful things. Interview over.
Now,
thanks for coming in. I appreciate it.
Right now, there's tools on this iPhone that can help me hold myself accountable to how I'm intaking. I don't really use those because it's still more the burden's on me. If we can create tools like that allow us to hold the apps accountable, to say, listen, you have optimized reels, short-term reels to diminish my health, and the stuff you're feeding me is diminishing my health. So I want to hold you accountable to create more healthy ecosystem for my mental health to communicate on. Boy, but
yeah, we can use that. I just saw today Lovable released their really
AI
user-friendly
cloud.
AI
It's a big
cloud.
deal.
And it's amazing. You can make this app now. You can make something that's like, tell me or get all the stories you can that have good traction, and then organize them in net benefit for how much good it does for me as a human. That's possible.
There's a couple major stories happening right now. Lovable, which is the vibe coding app that's done really well. They currently have over 100,000 projects launched every single day by people talking to their app and telling it what to build. It just launched about 4 hours ago. It hit the news. Their Lovable Cloud AI tool that allows you to do extremely advanced AI coding. And the way the news is framing it is software developers, programmers, you're all out of a job. It's only a matter of time. You'll never be able to compete against Lovable. And see, this is how things are often framed. Look at this incredible thing that's happening. All of you are out of a job. Another one that hit the news is Accenture has laid off 11,000 people, even though their revenue has gone up 7%. So here's a company that their revenue went up 7%, but they still laid off 11,000 people. And who are Accenture employees? They are high-end consultants that Accenture charges out $400, $700, $1,500 an hour to Fortune 500 companies. They just laid off 11,000 people. They said, anybody that doesn't adapt to AI, we're going to let you go. So either you can get retrained to become an AI prompt engineer, so we can still charge out $1,000 an hour against you, while we only pay you whatever $100 an hour and make the margin on it. And they're not suffering. Accenture even now is still having a more profitable year than ever before. Yet they don't care. They just lay off the employees. Now, what does the news say? This is the beginning of the end. Everyone's going to get laid off. Even the high-end consultants are getting laid off. And this is why I brought this topic up today. I brought the topic up about, could decentralized AI become benevolent? Because the majority of the rhythms of what we hear in the news is not, look at this incredible development that's happening. This is so amazing how far it's gone. How could this lead to human flourishing? How can this lead to a transformed economy? What's going to happen when AI starts applying itself to medical and not just, technology? What happens when AI starts applying itself to, this thing or that thing and not just these things over here? Instead, it's like, okay, this happened. Let's tell it in the worst way possible to scare people. And so my question is, why don't humans talk about the potential benefits that could come with human flourishing through AI to the extent of coming up with best case scenarios? Because it feels like we constantly discuss worst case scenarios. Again, I'll bring up this comment from Music CTO. How can we do better at becoming a diamond standard example of the training data that nurtures benevolence as an essential, non-negotiable core principle? Great question. You guys want to jump in and respond to the stuff that we've been talking about the last couple minutes, or even this question?
What you just said about, like with the layoffs and what have you. Again, my question would be, and this would come back to that net benefit score, right? I think if that was like even business decisions, and whether this is a government thing or not, like you have a foundational kind of measure, it would be this versus laying off 11,000 people. What else have you done with AI? You like, to me, it seems hypocritical. So your go-to move, you're telling people learn AI or get out. Okay, where's the example? You got 11,000 people and you're a technology company. Miss me with all the nonsense about you didn't know this was coming. Just like we have truck drivers. Autonomous driving is coming. It's happening. There's no ifs, ands, buts, or maybes about it. We have some runway to go. Right?
Right.
What are we doing? Has anyone even broached the subject as simply using a generic free AI, take your pick, and saying, what can we do to offset this thing? You're not using the very tools that you want to lay people off for not using. How? And better still, here's a better metric. Who was the brain trust of this? Not committee, name, face, single throat to choke. Somehow I suspect when you put in service this yesterday, the pastor said something that just resonated so deeply with me, talking about Corinthians, and I don't remember the exact verse, but he said the thorn has a face. And what we were discussing, or what he was discussing, is that when God allows challenges in our life, he didn't cause them, but he allows them for us to have the ability to grow. And this layoff type thing is one of those things. But the challenges that come, they have a face.
Right.
So when, you have managers as a high ranking, C-suite individual that you deploy, your minions to do your dirty work, so to speak. You send them out, but you hide behind it. It's like the person on the front line. I have a practice that I engage in whenever there's an issue or something that I need addressed, my go-to move is to skip past the person in the front because they're not the one with the decision. Show me the person who made the decision so I can talk to them. I remember my son telling me he was in the bank, and it was during COVID, and someone came in to withdraw a large sum of money. Very large gentleman. Didn't have the look on his face like he was someone to be trifled with. And his manager, in this person's infinite wisdom, said, yeah, just go tell him we can't give him the money. And my son, being the intelligent being, I'll just pat myself on the back and take full credit for that. He goes, absolutely not. Feel free. You go tell that large man that you are keeping his money, because I see the money in the account, because I'm not doing that, because common sense is telling me that could have serious consequences and repercussions. And this is the type of things that we don't see people standing out in front of. And this is where I feel like the blockchain can be super effective in curtailing that behavior completely. And I'm not guessing here. You know, back in the day, the mortgage crisis, as soon as the CEO and the CFO were hit with, I don't care if you knew or not, you're going to jail, everybody started being more accountable and responsible. But before that, they were like, not know me. I don't know nothing about nothing. My name's Bennett. I'm not in it. But as soon as that decision was made, man, the knowledge skyrocketed better, faster than any AI we've ever seen. It was immediate. You started seeing the messages and the emails coming down. You better tick and tie every box because I'm not going to jail. Of course not. But you were happy to let other people go because your face wasn't on it. So that message, the thorn has a face, resonated a lot with me. And I feel like when we have to be accountable for the trickle down effect of our decisions and behavior, we start to engage in that demonstrative behavior that helps to foster people to pick up the charge as well.
If I can go back to that comment real quick.
Can you?
Of how can we do better at creating that example? I think earlier I said perfect, but in a way you can't ever expect AI to be perfect. But benevolence doesn't mean perfection. And so if we want this future of AI is generous, AI is benevolent, lovely. That sounds like a very net good for humanity. But what's in my mind is there's two main ways or two main problems that we need to overcome for that. The first is, how do we make it so these AIs are decentralized and not just run by an open AI company who wants a bunch of money? That's its own problem. But the one that we're talking about right now is, how do we train AI to actually value being benevolent and being generous? Because that's something that is important as well. If it's just decentralized, but yet it's always told that the higher your number is on your cryptocurrency, then the better it is. Then it's just going to get more and more money, and it's going to do it in bad ways. But if generosity becomes the most important thing, that's what it's going to do. So what's run through my mind is this example of the human body. The human body, I'd say, is quite miraculous and amazing. I imagine most of you guys would probably agree. And if you look at each individual cell, we have it's the tens of trillions. It's like over 30 trillion cells in our body that are human cells. And then you have even more cells that are bacteria cells. So we have 70 trillion cells in our body. Now, each cell isn't constantly trying to make sure that it stays alive. There's this whole concept that happens all the time called apoptosis, where a cell has something wrong with it and so it dies. And so looking at this parallel between humans tend to work pretty well, in my opinion, I'd say that each cell coming together in a way to make sure that the human can work is something that is beneficial to each cell. If all my skin cells all of a sudden didn't want to be skin and they just decided to do something else, or if all of my immune cells decided, oh, the brain cells are doing something wrong, then bam, now my immune cells are also dead because they just killed the headquarters. And so if we look at AI in this example and say AI is the cells to our human body that is humanity. If AI is always told, being generous, like the guy you're mentioning earlier, take these principles where being generous is beneficial to not just the person you're being generous to, but you as well. That is something that by telling AI, this is a core principle, by making it non-negotiable, you're going through apoptosis if you don't do it, bam, that's the fourth rule. Being generous is a net good, so do it. Imagine the future that that kind of concept can create.
Love to hear from you, Dan, if you have anything on your mind, either on what Malachi said or what any of the guys said recently. I miss your voice.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Well, good, you guys. I think that there's a lot of great thoughts and great ideas. Benevolent. Still, I think it's an operating system, but I do know that AI is benevolent in a lot of areas. Like, for instance, it has democratized access. Like, we use AI for help with medical. How about people that are low income and maybe need some legal advice or some legal help? The AI systems have been able to make expert level assistance for something that has to legal advice or school tutoring, mental health support, and even just things that we are constantly becoming creative with. So I think that there's a lot of benevolence that's already inside of AI that we use, and we've not really paid attention to it. So, yeah, I think that it's a matter of, how you're looking at things. But it's great discussion to talk about benevolence, period. And yeah, having great ideas to use technology to help each other instead of hurt each other. I think we're all about that in core essence. I look forward to seeing where we're going.
This is the type of thing I would love to see come up at like one of these Senate hearings when they're talking to these big tech CEOs. Like, what are you doing to infuse benevolence into your product? I feel like it would be
I can see the response.
oh yeah, and I
what
mean,
are you
I feel
doing
like,
to do
yes.
benevolence into our government?
Well, I would expect the senators and Congress people, to come with the same energy that they spend with all this bloody bickering that they're always doing. That it's a circle of no progress. Come with the same energy. You want to yell and kick off for that. Like, get your knowledge up for that. Don't you're telling me, we should use AI and we're at the beginning. How are you using it?
Right.
Like, again, how are you using it, to do good? And is the bar set too low? Like, it's stunning to me that you have folks at the helm of technology companies making up excuses as to why things can't be done. It makes no sense. That bar should be so high.
Yeah. It's why
So
Elon
high.
is so successful. The reason that Elon has done so well is because he sets bars that are just so freaking high. He goes for things that seem impossible to everyone, and then he does some of that, but that's way more than what he would have done if he said, I'm just going to go for that.
Well,
And
Steve Jobs, that was also his secret.
Yeah, it's
really
something
high
with
bar.
all those big guys. But it's just that kind of concept of, by setting the high bar, by having hope that there can be better, you're going to do much better because you actually believe, and it really, really ripples into everywhere else.
I like this idea. One, thank you for bringing this up, Ian, because I think this is something that we need to infuse. Like, people need to be talking about this, and there are some in the science fiction. Like, I would say that if you guys saw the movie Transcendence with Johnny Depp, came out about 5 or so years ago, it was about this, and the AI was benevolent. And that's kind of the whole twist, and it was creating flourishing for humanity. But spoiler alert, humanity didn't like it. They were afraid of it. They didn't think it was benevolent, and so they destroyed it. But we need to talk about this. And I actually see this I see it like from the point of a game, and in the sense that the game is, how do we as a society, whether it's private philanthropy or public philanthropy, which would be like our safety net and all the social services that we provide through the government, how do we allocate resources to take care of those who need those resources? And I would say we do a very, very bad job at that. And I don't think, and if we could solve and figure out how to do a better job, optimize that job, I think, again, it's like benevolence isn't just about being selfless to help others. It's about having that open mind, that shift that realizes their best interests and my best interests those aren't mutually exclusive, and we can achieve those together. And now we come aligned around those same goals, and I think we can unlock a tremendous amount of flourishing. And we're doing like if we can bring AI into let's start out with an assistant. If we can bring AI into the social services industry, like how do we decide policies of how we allocate resources to help those who are in homelessness? Or how do we allocate resources so that less people are in homelessness? Like, we do such a bad job of how we allocate the resources right now. Yeah, I think, and I think we actually spend money and make the problem worse. Well, let's analyze that problem. It's a very complex problem. Let's understand it from the whole system, everything that's contributing to that, not just what appears to be contributing to that, but the whole system. And then let's improve it. And I think that, AI has proven that it's great at finding greater efficiencies. So let's just let's get our arms around the whole thing and try to bring that data into AI, and let's try to bring AI into the social services industry.
I recently spent some time at a city council meeting here in Florida, and it was interesting to see how people went back and forth on how they manage particular issues. But something came to mind as you were speaking, Ted, and it's something that I talk about a lot in your how much you've done. Like going to play basketball in the prisons and stuff like that. I think that there's something that keeps coming back to me about the sweat equity of when you're actually putting yourself into a project, because it's not money, it's not influence, it's doing. And I feel like if you start to tie that to how much you get as a multiplier, I feel it will stimulate more. Like, instead of the complexity of grant writing or whatever the case may be, skip the line because you've done so much. Skip it. Multiply. If you've done nothing else except apply for the grant, okay, your multiplier is 1. 18 years playing basketball, okay, your multiplier is 18. Because if you incentivize doing it by the work, it will, I believe, in some way stimulate more of that same effort. Make it, democratize it that way. I feel like there could be something there that will drive the people, at least curiously. Because if all of a sudden you get someone who would otherwise not been able to raise, certain funds or get certain amounts of government grants, getting them because of all that they've done, then people will see it as more. I think you'll create, a store of value in that, and one that can actually be paid forward, that can be demonstrated to push to move the needle. But I don't know that. I don't know that that's it, but I do know that with AI, the bureaucracy, there's just no way I could conceive this not being less problematic. It shouldn't take as long. We should be able to weed through these things way faster than what we've been doing.
So the premise of my question for the topic today is, could decentralized AI become generous and philanthropic, which we kind of bake down into the word of benevolent, which isn't exactly the same as generosity and philanthropy, but we get the idea. So here's the final thing I'd like us to chat about. And then actually, if you guys are okay with it, I'd like to actually pick up this conversation tomorrow after we've had 24 hours to think about it, 22 and a half hours, and really give each of us time to think about it and come to the table with some deeper thoughts and questions, and maybe, even reasons why this wouldn't work, etc. But here's my other thought. What if it's not decentralized AI? What if this starts off by the Red Cross, Salvation Army, the Catholic Church, the Baptist organization? I'm trying to think of like massive, huge,
World Vision,
gargantuan institutions that are right there when a disaster happens to raise money, and they seem a little slow to me to actually make an impact. Wouldn't it be great if they've already allocated a certain amount of budget to their AI philanthropic arm, that when disaster strikes, when the tornado, the earthquake, the flood, the tsunami comes, the cyclone comes, when the shooting happens, when whatever terrible thing just went on, and it's going to take FEMA 36 hours to even show up, and Red Cross might take, they might raise money in 3 minutes, but they might take 3 weeks to actually do anything with that money. So what if one of the first ways that AI starts to learn the rhythms of generosity, of charity, of philanthropy, benevolence, what if it starts off with the Red Cross just saying, we're going to start setting aside 2% of all donations, 25% of all donations into a fund that we've released to AI to do what needs to be done with it. And there has to be maybe checks and balances to make sure that fraudsters can't trick the AI or whatnot. But the idea is, maybe we don't start with decentralized AI being benevolent. Maybe we start with Red Cross being innovative, with Salvation Army being innovative, with them saying, hey, we have all this money in the bank. What we're great at is raising money. Every time something bad happens, we have a landing page ready to go. We're immediately doing commercials. We're on the radio. We've blasted social media. We're letting everybody know this disaster happened. Trust us. Give us your money. We'll take care of the people that need it. That's what they're great at. What they don't seem to be super great at is speed and actually doing something great with that money. And they already have money in the bank. It's been said that Salvation Army has as much money as any nonprofit in the world. I imagine the Catholic Church has more access to capital than we can even fathom. So if they were to partition a small percentage of their existing capital to something that allows an AI tool to immediately go to action, that might be one of the things that kind of spurs on this big idea. So that's the last thing I'll say for our time together. Love to hear your guys' final thoughts before we wrap up today and come back to the topic tomorrow.
I'd love to give some final thoughts, and thank you that we're going to continue this tomorrow. I also want to put a shout out. If you're in the Bay Area, join us on Wednesday at the House of Web 3, 12 to 1:30. And we're going to have an in-person meetup, and we're going to have a panel, and Ian and Riza Utili are going to be facilitating, leading that panel, and I'll be on it, and Paul Peisner as well. We're going to be talking about this in person. And although, we're going to focus it on the Bay Area and how we can actually do something. So if you're interested, you're invited to lunch on Wednesday in the Bay Area at the Presidio at the House of Web 3, 12 to 1:30. But Ian, I love these ideas. And it doesn't have to be read, even a step easier than that. They create an AI that advises them on how they'll allocate the resources. They wouldn't even have to give resources to the AI to allocate it. Just create an AI that's going to allocate, that it could study what they've done. And Red Cross has examples where they performed really well and where they had some bumps in the road. And lots of other organizations, Salvation Army, the AI could analyze those and then come into a new situation where it comes and then just advise them on the best way to allocate the resources quickly.
Excellent, Ted. Thanks for inviting everybody. Yes, Ted, Malachi, Riza, myself, I believe Dan will be with us as well over at the Presidio.
Excellent.
and Presidio means a lot.
We're
to
going to
our
also
family.
live stream that. So Nigel will be on too
We will.
virtually. So
We'll be live streaming. We'll start the live stream at about 11:50.
Yay for
And
me.
we'll chit chat with Nigel for a few minutes
But
before we get
Nigel
started,
will
and
be
then Nigel can basically, participate that way. So, Nigel, Dan, Malachi, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, benevolence. Let's not just think about AI using it. How about we also think about ourselves using it? But
I love it.
great
Yeah.
conversation. And yeah, it's so much in the future that maybe we need to spend a little time on it. Maybe have some more thought into it will help us kind of have more clarification on where these things can and might go. I'm glad you brought up the decentralized and centralized. That's why I had asked the question earlier if you were just speaking about a decentralized benevolence AI system, because my mind was kind of traveling pretty far. But I think exactly what you had said, because I was going to also bring up that we have our benevolence big charitable organization, United Ways, Salvation Army, Red Cross, and even governmental systems like FEMA. There are a lot of funds that are allocated. I think part of the pushback is there's so much democracy even in these systems, even if they're nonprofit, as to where the money's going to go. And Ian, I'm glad you touched on the speed process, because when something happens, who cares, really how much or where it is? It's just right now, 72 hours, you need this to happen right now. And sometimes it takes longer than that just to decide where the funding is going to go. So yes, I think that's great that we have a centralized AI system that's in place through our Red Cross, through our nonprofit hospitals and things like that, and all scientific organizations and stuff like that use it right now. I think we forgot to mention that benevolent AI is in there. We've got to kind of dig for it, but again, for legal advice and legal systems and stuff like that, there's a lot of great information that someone would never be able to hire a lawyer. They can use AI for that, for your health systems, physically and mentally. There's great AI tools that can be used for that. So food for thought. These processes are in place, and benevolent AI systems for the future. Yes, I agree 100%. Take that.
We receive it. We love it. Any final thoughts, Nigel? And then I'll have Malachi share it, and then we'll wrap it up.
I think as we think about benevolence or any other avenue we pursue in terms of investment, we need to think of ROI. We need to really challenge ourselves to see if we're being accountable enough, responsible enough, and doing enough with what we've been given, and what we're, not how much we give, but even how far it goes is probably the best way I heard it put. I think when we think about it in those terms, in terms of an investment, it tends to send the right type of message for us to, strategically pursue this as we go into the future.
Yeah. I think it's a lot easier to say, hey, we should totally give money away, or hey, we should totally do this better. That is a lot harder to actually do. But being in this kind of world now, where I'm able to have 3 devices next to me and a bunch of things recording and a TV right there, and just so much amazingness that wasn't here in all of the past. Now it's not the question of should I, but now it's the non-negotiable obligation that I need to be that example to show AI what a human or what AI can do for humanity.
Nice.
I want that to be the future that we enter. And so it's now my personal obligation to try and do as much as I can to make that happen. And that doesn't mean, hey, we should make sure we give more money. But it means we should make sure that we're trying to have a decent moral standing, or that we're trying to actually use these AI tools in ways that help. Like sometimes I'll try and make sure that my prompt is done grammatically well, because I want to make sure that the AI actually gets good input.
Well, thanks for teaching the grammar.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. But it's just those little things that if we try and use these tools in ways that benefits humanity, then it'll benefit not only us, but future generations. And that's obviously a major net good.
Peace, everybody. We'll be back again tomorrow. We're going to talk more about the same topic. Maybe we'll be a bit more nuanced in terms of our thoughts of how do we maybe take the next step. Like, how would an organization start to leverage AI to enact its own benevolence that's supervised, and where can this all lead? But may you be blessed. May you be encouraged. If you're watching live, thanks for joining us. If you watch this later, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your attention.